everybody. I'm Mike Stowe. I'll be your DJ for today. We're going to play country music. Woo! No, actually, I just did the PHP 5.4 presentation, and some of the guys were dumb enough to come to this one, too. I don't know. Today we'll be talking about mobile web flows and the best practices for mobile design. This is really kind of an informal one. We're going to try to figure out what's the best way to approach this web flow for your specific website, because every website has differences and different needs. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm worried about the hecklers right here, watching them both. Yeah, 10 years experience, blah, blah, blah. I've done a few mobile sites. And I like long walks on the beach. Nobody ever cares about that. They're like, okay, that's sad. So the first question we have to ask today is, why worry about mobile? Why create a mobile website? Why take the time, the energy, the expenses to build a mobile website? What's going to happen with it? Well, by the end of 2012, there are going to be more mobile devices than people in the world. Now, by mobile devices, we're not just talking phones. We're talking cars. We're talking tablets. So there's going to be a lot more mobile access and a lot of different types of applications. In 2011, there were over 4 billion mobile phones. Of those, 1.08 billion were smartphones. By 2014, mobile internet usage is going to take more than desktop. So there's a good chance that most of your visitors will be coming from mobile websites. 50% of American cell phone owners have a smartphone, which is why we're going to really focus on smartphones today. 66% of Americans between the age of 24 and 35 own a smartphone, and 52% of adult cell phone owners rely on their device when making decisions. By a show of hands, how many people here have a phone? How many people have a smartphone? How many people have used your smartphone to find directions, find a restaurant, look at a web page for an ad you saw on TV? I'm sorry, what'd you say? No, hold on. I got to put him on the spot here.
Get pissed that a mobile site does not have a mobile version?
Exactly. You go to a website, you're like, hey, this doesn't work. And we're going to talk about that. You don't want to have to zoom in, zoom out, circle around, get a Flash website that doesn't work on an iPhone. More than half of all local searches are now performed on mobile devices. 86% of mobile users use that device when watching TV. If you're throwing ads on TV, there's a good chance they're not going to be on a computer watching or checking your website out. They're going to go on the mobile device, and you better hope you have a good website, otherwise you're going to lose them. On average, Americans spend 2.7 hours a day socializing on their phone or a mobile device. Things such as Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn. About 10% of all website traffic now comes from mobile devices. 55% of Twitter's traffic comes from a mobile device. Pandora gets 60% of their traffic. 54% of the Weather Channel's traffic in October came from mobile devices. Fandango, 40%, and 33% of all traffic to Facebook comes from a mobile device. And for the smartphone owners here, 34% of smartphone users make at least $100K a year. These are people who have finances and they're going to spend them. Mobile sales increased 86% from 2011 to 2012. And while it was only about $9 billion in sales in 2011, in 2015 they're expecting that number to reach $163 billion from mobile sales. A huge increase. However, as Jonathan pointed out, if your website looks like that, they're not going to buy anything. So let me ask you guys, what's wrong with this website? Everything. Okay, first off, if we look at the text, who wants to read that article for me? It's on the nice big projector. Who wants to try to find a link on this thing? We have to ask ourselves, when determining whether we need a mobile site, first off, is your site convenient to browse on a mobile device? Is it going to be something that's going to be easy for users to access, get what they want quickly, and be able to navigate without issue? How long does it take to load? How many people have gone to a site on the wonderful AT&T slow network, and it takes you about I'm gonna get a big letter from my phone company, and it takes about 40 seconds to load this small web page. You know, if it's taking too long, people just say, you know what, enough's enough, done, I'm not gonna worry about it, they're gonna continue on. Does it use drop-down menus? A lot of devices use simplistic methods of navigation, and if you have drop-down menus, it's extremely difficult for them to navigate your website, especially if you have a drop-down menu that has a side menu, which has a drop-down menu. Does it require you to zoom in and out? Not only does that mean that they have to find the content they're looking for, but now they have to zoom in, move it over, move it up, scroll it down. Does it contain Flash? Does it contain a lot of ads? We have to remember that mobile devices are different. And I think you guys all know this. They have smaller displays. There's less fluent typing. The gestures or the navigation's different. They don't always support everything. Much slower connections and special link types. Screen sizes are not only smaller, but they vary by device. When we look at mobile devices, we're including tablets. Do we have a site that works good at a tablet but not on an iPhone? Does it work good for both? Do we need a tablet site and an iPhone site? Kind of figuring out how's it going to fit. How's it going to look when they pull out a little Nokia that's a smartphone and go to it on a 1.5-inch screen? One thing we can do is we can use the Viewport meta tag. And I have a couple examples on there. I get my laser pointer. This is my favorite thing in the 5.4 presentation. You can set it so you scale it where they say, hey, you know what? This is the size of the display that you get. You can zoom. It is what it is. Or you can say, you know what, we're going to start at a scale of 100%, and you can scale it to 200%, but after that, you're done. So we get to really control and make it more determined for the user what they're going to see. In general, having the ability to zoom is a benefit. Because you're going to have people who get there, and you're going to say, hey, this looks fine to me. I can see it, no problem. And they get there, and the text is just a little bit too small. They can zoom it or modify it for their device. So not necessarily a bad thing to allow that, but you want to make sure it's scaled for their device originally. Less fluent typing. How many people have ever tried to text while driving? That's a trick question. I work for the police. Not easy, is it? You get people who just got an iPhone. My wife, when she got an iPhone, pulled it out, and she complained about how hard it was to type. She was used to a phone with a keyboard, BlackBerry. So people may not be used to their devices, and as such, if you have long forms saying, hey, I want 10 paragraphs on Mike Stowe is the best presenter in the world, I'm hurt. You know, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to want to spend the time and the energy. If you have long forms where they have to go through 5 pages to set something up, they don't want that. They want quick, easy, accessible. Gestures. Keep in mind that different devices use different types of navigation. You have touchscreen phones which use gestures. You have phones that have simplistic arrows where they just go up and down, left and right. And you have the scrolling wheel. As such, you have to remember that it needs to be simplistic and quickly accessible. If you go to a site, you don't want to have to try to find the navigation, scroll through 14 different button clicks to get to that navigation, or hit the button 14 different times to get to the right menu. You want quick access to that. Also keep in mind that people have different sized fingers. If your website has links or menu items that are very close together, chances are you're going to tick off a few people if they're clicking that button and they're going to the wrong page. May or may not support Flash. Keep in mind that different devices have different capabilities. I'm an iPhone guy. I get it from my Android coworkers all the time, but iPhone doesn't support Flash. There's certain things the iPhone can't do. However, it seems phones are kind of moving that way, with the exception of Android, as Windows 7 doesn't support Flash. This means if you have Flash videos, music, games, advertisements on your website, they're not going to work on a mobile site. And in the case of the iPhone, they're just going to see a blank spot and wonder what the heck is going on. So make sure you use the appropriate alternatives for the mobile site. Also, mobile devices, we all know, have slower connections. Again, I'm sure you've hit that time where the networks are jammed and you're trying to get some information and your phone's just taking forever to get that. On top of having a slow connection and slower processors in general, users also have data restrictions. If I go to your site and your site takes up 2 gigabytes to download, you've just used up my entire monthly allowance. So we want to keep that in mind. Not only does it take longer, slows it down, makes them frustrated, uses up their data usage. They're not going to use their mobile device to browse to our site as often because of those things. Because of that, we want to avoid sending unnecessary code, oversized images, videos, etc. And we're going to talk about some different ways you can design for mobile, and this really comes into key where we say, okay, let's just hide this, or let's just move this here. Well, the code is still there, and that's still getting downloaded by the phone. Special features. Different phones make use of different HTML anchors or links and inputs, such as phone and email. For example, you can have the tell link for call me now. If you guys are developers or you do HTML, it's just like an email link, only it's tell and the number. There's also different types of inputs supported by different types of phones. For example, you can use the tell input to get a telephone number or an integer. You can use the email input, the URL input. And we have some examples of there right there. But keep in mind that not all inputs are supported by all types of phones. So if you're saying, oh, I'm just going to use the tell input to prevent them from adding letters, you still need to validate because not every phone is going to support the tell input. Also keep in mind that not all standard inputs are supported. Again, file with the iPhone, you're really not allowed to access their pictures and things like that directly from the browser. Okay, choosing a mobile solution. This is where it gets fun. We have different options when choosing mobile solutions for our users. The first option, really, really easy. Just ignore them. Who cares? The problem is, we already see people are using their devices more and more. People are expecting mobile-friendly websites. Another one we can do is responsive design. We can create a standard site for everybody. You come to the site readjusts, works on your device. We can create a mobile site, which is obviously just for mobile devices. And we can create apps, which are super friendly for specific mobile devices. So what do we want to choose? Well, ignoring mobile users, it's less work. However, again, your mobile users aren't going to be very happy. They're going to come to your site, too slow, too big, too inconvenient. And they're going to say, you know what? Competitor XYZ has a mobile site. Why should I use your service versus their service? And to think about that, imagine how many people here use Facebook or Twitter on the mobile phone? Okay, imagine if you couldn't tweet or comment on Facebook. Would you use the mobile site? I think people are tweeting their answers right now. Responsive, also less work. And it works for all devices. You get somebody who comes in with an iPad, works. You get somebody who comes in with a different size Android tablet, it works. If you're like me and you got the WebOS tablet, yeah, it works. iPhone, Android, etc. The problem with responsive design is we're limited. There are certain things that are not going to work on all devices. For example, Flash, JavaScript in some cases. Excuse me. The other problem with responsive design is that we're going to be using data usage. We're still sending all that code. And unless you're scaling images and checking the image size, you're going to be sending the same sized image you sent for the desktop to the mobile site. You use that same amount of data. And mobile users don't need supersized images. Mobile sites. Advantage, it's really easy for your mobile users. They're going to be happy. Because they're going to be happy, they're going to buy stuff or they're going to use your site. And it works across multiple platforms. How many people have ever gone a mobile site on a desktop? Okay? Were you guys like, oh crap, I don't know what to do. How does this thing work? Might be like, oh, this is weird, this kind of sucks. I'll go to the full site. Or like, hey, click, mobile site. I'll just use it really quick. So even the worst case, it works across all the different platforms. Disadvantage, that's a whole other platform to maintain. It's a lot more work and a lot more in costs. And then, of course, there's creating applications to run natively on the mobile device. Very, very easy for mobile users. It's right there. They can click on it, get it done. It takes advantage of their phone's capabilities. And that's also going to increase sales and revenue. Again, it's more work. It's going to cost more. It only works on limited devices. You can create something using like PhoneGap, for example, where it works on multiple devices, but you're still limited to the devices that support that app. Or you can be really fancy, create an iPhone app, and then you have your Android users going, hey, about us. The other problem is it requires users to download. You add another step for users, and you're requiring them to take the initiative to get that app on top of visiting your site in order to use your site. Therefore, the best practice, according to W3, is providing a mobile site alternative. Now, there's a caveat to that, because if you go to a mobile site and you can't do anything, it's just going to tick you off. You're like, well, just send me the full site. What they say is you should send users to the most convenient site for them, for the process that they're going to do. Users want simplistic, easy to navigate sites with the same capabilities. And that's why it's more work. It's really easy to create a quick mobile site. I mean, you type 4 lines of HTML code that says, welcome to our mobile site. However, they're not going to have the same capabilities. They're not going to be happy. Again, imagine if you went to a site and you couldn't do the same things. You're not going to want to use that. So the next question we have then is, who has a mobile website? A lot of people do. Those images are a lot bigger on the screen. Yahoo, eBay, CNN, all the big companies have mobile sites. They have them for a reason. They work. They attract visitors. Which brings us to, what do we do once we have that set up? How do we want to handle the web flow for our mobile users? Again, options. We can redirect them automatically. How many people like being redirected automatically? Raise your hand. Okay, like 3. How many people absolutely hate it? You want to go to the full site and let that download first. Okay. You guys aren't a really interactive group. That was like 4 people. Okay, so you can automatically redirect them. You can take them to a splash screen that says, hey, do you want to go to the full site? Do you want to go to the mobile site? Or do you want to go to our app? But again, you're going to add another step. You can do a manual redirect where users either have to enter the mobile URL or click a link. And by ratio of 3 to 1, that was voted against. And you can do application only. Users have to download the application to use for mobile. Auto redirect loads faster. Another advantage is it uses less data. Rather than have to go to the full site, download the full site, find the link, and click on it, they're now taken to a mobile site that loads quicker and uses less data. Because it loads quicker, if they want to go to the full site, they have that link presented to them sooner. It's formatted for the device. Again, you're going to a site where, hey, I can see what I'm looking for, I can get the information quickly, easy to navigate, it's made for the screen I'm looking on it with. And most users, as we already found out with the vote here, which was purely scientific, many users prefer mobile websites. Disadvantage, you're not given an option. You're going to the mobile site right off the bat. Splash screen. That loads the fastest. Usually splash screens take the least amount of time to load. Users get a choice. Hey, do I want to go to the mobile site? Do I want to go to the full site? But it adds one more step. And while that step may not be a big deal the first time your users click it, if not remembered, it becomes an inconvenience. And we'll talk about that a little bit later here as well. Manual redirect. Users are provided the full site, and users get to choose whether or not to see the mobile site. Some users prefer the full site, and so now they're there. Disadvantage, it takes longer to load and uses a lot more data. Not formatted for the device. And users must know to look for that link or go to the mobile site. And of course, application. Extremely accessible and always on the user's phone. Will visit you just because they find the application by randomly scrolling through the different windows. However, it requires users to download. It's not always available on all devices, and it may be forgotten. How many people can tell me every application you have on your phone? How many people have ever gone to a website, said, hey, they have an application, you click on the application to go to the store, and it says, already installed. Just, you forget about it. And if you do application only, you're going to lose these users who are going to your site. The best practice is to have a well-designed mobile site, again, that offers similar functionality. and to redirect the user to that mobile site right off the bat. So if a mobile user goes to your site, it'd be a great idea to go to m.yoursite.com. Or if you have a special iPhone site, or iphone.yoursite.com. But users should be provided with the opportunity to access your full site. How many people have gone to a mobile site looking for something and you absolutely can't find it? And then you go to the full site, you're like, man, this was just easier. So they need to be able to go back to your full site and take advantage of all the opportunities that you offer. This preference should be remembered. If I'm on your full site and I'm looking for something like, okay, I found what I'm looking for, I click that link, and you take me back to the mobile site with a page not found, did me absolutely no good. So you want to keep them on the environment that they're in. One thing with cookies, limit the amount of cookies you use. It's strongly recommended to use only 1 or 2 cookies. You know, using a cookie to remember their preference, and then using a cookie, for example, for a session. You don't want to store their preference in a session because once they close the browser, session's gone. They come back to the site, their preference won't be remembered. As I mentioned, you want to redirect them to a subdomain. The advantage to this is it tells them where they're going. They click on your site, boom, m.yoursite.com. Okay, now I'm going to a mobile site. I know what's loading. I know what to expect. However, you get sites where they do 15, 16, 17 different redirects. Users don't want that. They don't want to see blue bar, no blue bar, no blue bar, no blue bar. Okay, they get tired of that. Also, redirect should be done back end. You don't want to be doing redirects with JavaScript, as again, they're coming to your site, they're downloading data, and now they're being redirected versus going to your site and bam, no data is being sent to them directly. They're going to the mobile version where they'll download the data there. So who uses automatic redirects of those sites that we just showed? And Candace is going to get mad at me here in just a second. Most of the websites use them. You go to yahoo.com, you're on the mobile website. CNN.com, mobile website. Twitter, Facebook. Even the Vikings, who can't seem to get a Super Bowl just quite yet, have a mobile website. Manual redirects. Reddit uses manual redirects. Carrying Bridge on certain pages uses manual redirects. And Microsoft uses manual redirects. How many people knew that Microsoft had a mobile site? I found it by accident. I was digging through. I was like, I wonder if I go m.microsoft.com. Got there. They don't have a link on their website anywhere. And again, that's the problem. People have to find the link. They have to know where to look. And if they don't, they're not going to use your mobile website. And now you've just wasted the money building it. Who uses splash screens? Any hockey fans? No Wild fans? Okay, we got one. All right. That was alone for a second. I was going to have to run out of the room. NHL uses them. NHL uses a splash screen to advertise their applications. The problem is, every time you go to NHL.com, you get that splash screen. It says, do you want to download this app? No. Do you want to download this app? No. Do you want to download it? I just want to see the score. I want to know that the Wild actually won a game in their last 10. So, again, the idea is to present the information they want right away. Give them what they're looking for. And you can't meet everybody's needs, but you want to give the majority the information they want. Now, who only uses apps? Of course, mobile phones, mobile sites do. AT&T, T-Mobile. Why? They want you to buy a phone that can handle their website. They don't want you going to their website with a mobile phone and say, hey, this looks great on this phone. I'm not going to buy a new one. And then Apple, of course, they're just against the grain on everything. So, but again, keep in mind, unless users go looking for it and find your applications, they're not going to know they exist. AT&T advertises on their website, but you have to go, in my case for the iPhone, you have to find it in the iTunes Store, download it. Same with the Apple Store. And they're required to either find the app in the App Store or navigate to the full site on their device to find the mobile app. Okay. The PHP 5.4 group is absolutely screaming for joy because we're at the recap session already. About 30 after, like, please stop. So recap. Make it accessible. Users should be able to quickly access your site in a device-friendly format. Avoid making your users search for links or download applications to access your site in a convenient manner. Mobile sites should be quick to load, using as little data and avoiding any unnecessary extras. Having smaller images, not pulling in the super large background that your nice CSS3 site uses. Make it convenient. Again, mobile devices are becoming more and more popular, and as such, sites need to be easily accessible and convenient on these devices. To go back to the TV, people are watching TV, they see your ad or they hear something about you, they go on their device looking for it. You got them. You had that ad. That ad was successful. They get to your site. That's going to make or break the deal. And make it global. Remember, there are a vast array of devices, and they don't all have the same capabilities. It's important to know your target audience because not all websites are going to be designed the same for everybody. Some sites you're going to say, you know what, our site's really high tech, we're only looking for smartphone users. Other sites you're going to say, you know what, we need to kind of go back for the other people as well. So knowing your target audience and making the decisions to meet those capabilities. The trick with it is you want to make the coolest site possible. You want a nice, fancy, awesome site, but you want it to load quickly and you want it to work. And that's what users want. Now, it says the end. It's not really the end. Any ideas or ways we can make mobile sites better in general? Way in the back.
So one thing we were kind of assuming throughout this was that there's a dichotomy between mobile and web,
Mm-hmm.
desktop web. What about tablet? I mean, isn't there free? Isn't there a full spectrum of form factors?
Well, tablet, in the technical consideration, is considered more of a mobile device. Your laptop, you can take from place to place, but with your tablet, you can have 3G connected to it. Sometimes people are going to be on the move using it. And in many cases right now, tablets are bigger phones. A lot of the Android tablets, the iPad is basically the iPhone giganticized. So yes, you have to take them into consideration and say, we need to support tablets as well. But under the terminology, we're considering it a mobile device, and that's included in those numbers. I'll go right here first. Mm-hmm.
So we're treating tablet as more of a desktop as opposed to more of a mobile. It does kind of cross the middle with the touch gestures and things like that, but I think there are three, and tablet is kind of that weird in between. Mobile side on tablet, it just looks like gigantic.
Yep, and that's kind of again what we're talking about. Knowing the different screen sizes and making it work for the different screen sizes. And I think there's this, false assumption that one solution works for all as well. If you go to Facebook, you get on an iPhone, you get an iPhone optimized site. If you go to Twitter on iPhone, you get an iPhone optimized site for Twitter. So you're absolutely right. With tablets, with a phone, you kind of have more of the scroll quick. With tablets, you kind of have more of a magazine. You don't want the drop downs because again of the gestures. But you're right. You don't want to have this giant link that says continue or whatever. So you're right in that case. We'll go here and then we'll swing over there.
So what's the real argument against just having like 4 good style sheets for responsive design? I mean, I look at these mobile sites sometimes that are designed for mobile, and a lot of the times it works like crap on a tablet because you're expecting to be able to be more productive with the screen size.
The downside to responsive design, and there's a big push for it right now, and there are benefits as well. But the downside is that we tend to overlook it, and we start looking at responsive design and say, okay, we're building this on a desktop, it's going to work on a mobile. And because of that, we're using big images, and we're not scaling the images down data-wise. We're using code that's not going to work on the mobile, and we're not getting rid of that code. That code's still going to get transferred. So you're saying a desktop page, it's going to change, but you're still going to use the data and take the time. And that's the issue with responsive design. And I think I said you. Well, it depends on what you're using. If you have an HTML-only site, you're kind of a crick without a paddle. You got to use JavaScript. If you're creating a site in ASP, PHP, Java, etc., you could check, for example, the HTTP user agent and do a regex against it and say, okay, does it match these items? Does it fall within these categories? For example, iPhone, and the user agent says iPhone. You can say, okay, that's an iPhone. We reject to an iPhone site. Let's go way up the top. Yep. Well, and that kind of goes to a couple of different things. First of all, just from a security matter, session ID should never be stored in the URL. That there's a huge security risk with that. But in that case, what you'd want is you're kind of in a win-win in a kind of a weird way. They go to the app, they'd be like, oh, I don't use this app, but I was interested in this site. And they might go to your site, or they might download the app if they have the appropriate device. If they go to a mobile site, they're like, well, I don't want the mobile site. Again, we have the full site link, which is right there, and they just go full site. Ideally, you could detect and say, okay, on your mobile site, is it a desktop? If it's a desktop, send them back to desktop, or if it's a mobile, send them to a mobile. So you could actually have the checks on both sites to do that. And then the cookie, because it's persistent on the one machine and isn't stored with a link, it wouldn't matter. Their preference would be separate from that shortened URL. Let's go back up there.
I noticed on your slides that you were having a lot of quotes from
Yes.
Anyways, one of the things that he did at DrupalCon 2012, he was
You're just trying to advertise that, aren't you?
is that he gave a lot of really
Mhm.
and how when they really wrote for mobile first, it was just so much more effective. It showed how it would have your the time to flight leave, the time to flight rise versus then show what desktop was like. Like he was saying that by having to scale back, it's making it a lot better. But that's really a great example of argument for trying to program specific.
Well, you're absolutely right. If you go to a lot of desktop sites, they are very noisy. There's a lot of information, and that can be taken away from and distracted. And that's, again, the advantage to the mobile site. You don't want to go to a mobile site and have 14 different ads and have the ad pop up, in the light box. You want to get the content. You don't have to scroll around to close that light box. Up top.
It's been a while since I looked at the user agent strings, but I'm sure Apple has it all nailed down for their products. But on Android, what kind of granularity, what level of detail can you get out of those things to tell me if it's a 10-inch screen on an Android tablet or a 2.5-inch screen on an Android phone?
With Android, it will tell you it'll tell you Android, and they'll tell you the software version. I believe Honey is 3.1. Is that right, Andrew?
Primarily says in the device name. It doesn't specifically call out screen size.
So it tells me if it's a Motorola Zoom or...
Yeah, and then also any JavaScript you can actually
Yep. And
Because there's lots of mobile sites, you go out there and misdiagnoses your machine. And I've got a 2.5-inch screen on my phone, and also I got the full website.
And that's the problem with the regex, too, is you're not going to catch everybody. And that's why also the subdomain is, if they go to the subdomain deliberately, well, they're deliberately going to your mobile site for a reason. And so that's kind of the advantage of having that as a separate link versus just going, I'm going to pick on MinneStar here, sessions.minnestar.org. If I want to go to my mobile website and it doesn't recognize my device, I'm going to get the full site. Granted, they use responsive design, so it's condensed, and they don't use a lot of fancy extras, so they really don't have to be concerned about that.
One big push we have in our company is the internal facing apps, enterprise data entry apps. Talk about that real quick, and if you think some of the document there would be different for those kind of sites as opposed to a public facing kind of a read-only presentation site. Labs for a lot of data. You want to go mobile.
Well, I think in reality it's the same concept for both. I created an application for a law enforcement agency where they wanted just what you said. It was data entry. They had to enter the data, and they could have thousands of fields. And so I think when you look at a mobile device, you're saying, okay, what fields are they going to enter most of the time? Let's get those in there, make sure those are there. Do we want to offer the options? And again, with internet, you might know what devices that they have if it's custom, if it's standard issue. Do we want to add the ability to say, okay, and this field equals, and kind of modify how that is handled so that's in a more user-friendly format. But, you run into kind of that caveat. You got all this data that has to be entered, but at the same time, you don't want your employees on company time taking 20 minutes to fill out a simple, request for information form for somebody. So it's kind of, you got to kind of find the middle ground.
Might be too low level for the group, but one thing to note when developing Android applications and mobile websites, you can actually detect URLs
All right. Over there. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, responsive design, when done correctly, is it works. MinneStar did a great job with their site and responsive design. The problem is when it doesn't work. You get a lot of sites out there and they hear responsive design, just like Web 2.0 or CSS3 or HTML5. And so they start to implement it. And they try to take this hugely complex website and make it responsive and put everything on the mobile site. And it really does. When we start off, it depends on the site you have to begin with. MinneStar is a very basic, site for the sessions. Very quick, fast loading. Really didn't need to create a special mobile site. They could use the responsive design. But if you go to a site like yahoo.com, if they try to do responsive design with that site, you're going to see a lot of different issues as they got too much data on the site, and it's going to take too long. So it does depend on your site. And I'm a backend developer. I don't like doing, different code either. Yeah, I mean, Candles will tell you. He goes, I complain about how much stuff we have to do with our mobile site. But in the end, it becomes what is the most convenient method for your users. And exactly. And like I said, it depends on the site. Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, just to throw this on there, you were talking about the JavaScript libraries. Being a backend developer, I have to automatically jump to the other side of the code. Those work very well. You can also do backend code to check for things. Like if it's a mobile site, it's a mobile site, pulling in the smaller image that way, which reduces the work that the mobile browser has to do. And again, speeds things up a little bit. Mm-hmm. It looks nice, but and things are changing too. I mean, we're getting faster and faster connections. It looks nice, but we have to remember that there are people out. I grew up in Bemidji, Minnesota. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. We're lucky to have cell phone service there. So we're getting slow speeds, and I go to a site, and I have to wait 10 seconds for the image to load. And I don't want to wait 10 seconds. So, again, you have to know your target audience. If, you're getting people where, hey, yeah, they're constantly going to your site using iPhones and they're on the 4G network or Wi-Fi, not a problem. But if they're possibly using slower connections, you want to take that in mind so that you're not pushing them away by your site taking too long to load. Yep. And that's one issue. With responsive design, the bigger the site, the more likely you're going to inconvenience the users just because you can't put all the pertinent data right there. On desktop, you have this huge screen where you can say, okay, I want important information there, important information there, important information there, etc. Mobile site, you have important information. That's it. And so with responsive, you can have information get buried on the bottom, again, if not done correctly, and depending on the type of site you have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one more quick question there. You know, I've seen it. What's that? Yeah, Twitter Bootstrap. Yeah, that'd be a good one. Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you all for coming out. Thank you for staying awake. And thank you for all your questions.